Put that on the live stream.
I was about to say.
Up the viewership.
You can be wherever you like. I can move this back.
Yo, we can do like the
Got it?
UFC of Doritos. Like
Yeah.
Self-conscious.
Doritos.
You got,
Let me just.
let the people get what they want,
No,
right?
it's like Dorito fight.
I think
That was actually online.
Dorito down.
So like whoever wins gets a bag of Doritos.
It's like ass though.
Who's getting
Like
ours?
Dorito. Yeah,
Oh,
like
that's-
Dorito.
The live stream.
Dead center, like.
The live stream is actually live right now, so it's live on the stream, yeah.
Hello, internet. Somebody please create.
And
Dorito.
live.
NSFW.
Hello, guys.
W Dorito.
Okay, we're just gonna start really quick. So I'm going to try to introduce you to 3 projects that I'm affiliated with. One I basically co-founded. The others are more, they're a little bit more wild, but I've been contributing for that, I guess, in the last 2 months. But first, I wanted to focus a little bit about what we have been doing at MCS. It's kind of a company in Berlin, not just kind of. We are a company since 11 years, but kind of, yeah. That's how startups always feel. And we basically built a health ecosystem that, wait, I can do this, that can capture, process, analyze, and save data all in once. And we have built for each step the accompanying necessities. For example, capturing, we're developing in-house certain kind of hardware that can capture health and environmental data. One of that is, for example, this smartwatch. That was kind of our flagship development. And then we have like the accompanying desktop, mobile applications. We have the algorithms that we create or develop, and of course, the accompanying software. And the question was more, why do we need this? It's kind of a tool that captures whatever data you need from a health and an environmental perspective, right? And what differentiates us from, let's say, Apple and Fitbit and whatever, is that we are quite, I guess, blockchain native, if you want to sense it that way, in nature, because we have a white box approach, meaning we don't control any of that data, but the data is stored locally on the devices of the users, making it, kind of like privacy-centric by design. Then we create a lot of actually hardware just around whatever use case is needed. And we have like the front end, the backend system, mobile apps, whatever. And we have pretty cool sensor technology, meaning we have something like a digital nose that can distinguish smells. We have an AI motion sensor that can learn your movement, like personalized movements, and start tracking it for you. And then we also, because we basically control this entire ecosystem, we can provide data synchronization. So everything that we can capture on the device can be synchronized also to the application, which is quite useful for research. I think you guys, I don't know if you know, but that's useful.
Carlos, come in.
Carlos. Okay, and then what we also do is that we have integrated medical standardized questionnaires on the device to contextualize data more. So it's not just about collecting it, but actually understanding, hey, how did you feel about this? And then we have like intervals where patients can say, yo, from 1 to 10, this was, I don't know, my pain level, or I had these kind of issues. So these are also customizable, of course. And what we essentially do is we give access to real-time raw data. And this can help basically in any form of therapy or kind of data monitoring context.
What sort of real-world data can you sense using the sensors?
All of it, from heart rate, oxygen levels, but this is what I'm going to do now.
Sorry.
All good. So we have different kind of sensors, including PPG. PPG is like, I can never really pronounce something with photo. so these 3 lights that penetrate the skin to basically track the heart rate variability from which you can deduct certain kind of stress levels, sleeping patterns, and actually a lot of other crazy things. We do track ECG as well. We have an EDA sensor, skin temperature, AI motion with the, the training that I told you.
patterns.
Huh?
Yeah.
Behind you.
Oh shit, that's it. That's it.
Okay. Accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, kind of cool for like with the motion things. Gas sensor, as I said before. We also have a microphone, which is kind of cool because we can track noises.
How much does it cost to manufacture?
Around like $400
each?
each unit, but it gets less expensive the more you like, depending on the quantity.
Okay.
Also environmental sensors in that sense, they're not listed here, but we can track humidity, temperature, like outside temperature, pollution, like that's something that we're going to focus on in the future, and all of that fun stuff. So it's been kind of cool. So these were the use cases that we were involved in. Just really quite a variety, because we are part of Horizon programs of the European Commission. So we have been confronted with a lot of projects around mental health. So now we're planning also to integrate EEG sensoring with our devices, like fitness, sports, AI track, like AI motion that kind of track, I guess, your physical activity. We are involved in things that are kind of cool around decentralized justice. It's going to come around like environmental data. And we actually also developed an app that can track your calorie count just by a picture, and then also through the movement.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. Okay, this is just for other people, but we basically also fall into the sustainable goals of the United Nations. Exactly, and these are kind of our partners. So we are quite centralized in that sense because we have the support of national, like German national governmental aid and grants, European projects based from the Horizon program. We have a lot of partners from like actually quite wide European collaboration platform, but we are in Germany partnering a lot with these institutes. And I've been kind of exploring different frontiers and getting more involved into Web3. That's why if you ask me questions, let's see if I can answer. But we actually partook in a hackathon last November in Istanbul, and also won like the DeSci track around trying to understand if we can build with our devices a decentralized infrastructure for clinical trials. And the whole question came up with, okay, our device is kind of privacy centric as long as you stay in that ecosystem. But what happens when you start transmitting data, right? We didn't really solve that issue, of course, but we use kind of ZK and Semaphore to make people on ZooPass, like especially the crowd that was already a participant of a certain community, not really identifiable. And I don't know, that was a little bit the whole idea that spun off a lot of different quests around, hey, can we actually contribute to the Web3 industry with what we have built already? So that was like the first thing where I was like, hey guys, what do you think? Okay.
So you know that insurance companies have kind of already done the math, and they're giving out smartwatches to their insurees because they find it that they can actually save money by tracking data and doing preventive medicine, right? Could we, and in this like dynamic, if there's a decentralized option where it's like you're not giving your data to like an insurance company necessarily, but to a proxy who is like indexing that data, maybe has agreements with different industry members, like into how to monetize that data and can actually pay you back for it. We would actually be interested in buying these devices and giving them for free. So like basically the most interesting use case for these devices is like Mike here is doing like data tracking systems, and what we need is more sensors. So and you actually with Web3 nowadays you could WorldCoin gives that stipend, right? And right now it's worth more than the cost of the sensor. So you can assume that each person will have enough money to pay for it if they live long enough. Right. So if we're in the business of getting people to get to their end stage of life, I actually think there will be a lot of money interested in sort of prepaying for these phones or these devices and giving them to anyone who's willing to share the data so that it can be analyzed in a trusted manner.
I mean, there was also the whole question around what happens if we have a public database that you can kind of spin off the data for any other research purpose or I don't know, any other project that people want to conduct.
And if you can, and because these devices can have a private key, they could basically sign off an attestation of that data being theirs and like immediately after there's roots, it's claimed by its owner. So if anyone ever uses that data for anything, that person can be paid back.
Exactly.
Even if that data goes to a database that does some analysis, just for being in the database, he can get a stipend because the database produces, say, $100,000 per year, but it's distributed to everyone in a curve. So, I mean,
Yeah, like a little bit as a decentralized marketplace for data.
yeah,
That's
and
why I
like what we're working on, like specifically, is like micro, like ownership of units of data.
Mm.
So if this thing basically produces a number of units of data every day,
Mm.
and if you put all that together, then you have valuable data sets that you can do inference on. Like Max already produced like studies with AI. So it's like he's watching his data,
Mhm.
and instead of having a researcher go and say, oh, let's study this, he has an AI system that creates hypotheses that he can like propagate, and the rest of the network can verify it the same day, basically.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting in the sense of if we make all the pipelines for information,
Mhm.
this is actually, you could get like 7 billion orders of these devices because everyone needs to be like reporting because it's valuable. And is a device protected by IP or is it open source?
So right now we don't really open source it because it's hardware. It's kind
Right.
of a mess to open source hardware, but we're planning on doing so maybe in the future. But that's something, like I said, we're not really Web3 yet, but it's like something more that I'm looking into and trying to understand the ideas behind and
Right.
like the use cases.
Yeah, because if it's an open source model, like you can be just like a research collective
Yeah.
for human data, and you open source it, and everyone who builds it is feeding you back data, which is what you actually want.
Exactly.
And then you can sell that off for a number of purposes and pay back the original person.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a lot of models, but it's just a question of understanding the need and understanding a little bit, I guess, Web3 better. Yeah.
Do you guys have like ambassador program kind of thing where people can use the watch, collect data for you?
So what we have been doing is, okay, so I think Web3 for an outsider is quite crazy. So I went into this thingy where I also met Josh eventually, and they tried to partner up with us in the sense that they have, these pop-up cities emerging, and they wanted to test with us this decentralized clinical trial infrastructure. So we would technically set them up and then give them a chance to basically monitor the health data of these residents for a period of 2 months. So that would be like
interested in pursuing.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Because we could pay you for the device, and you could get paid back as the data comes. So basically, we can have the user like commit to giving back a certain amount of data, and if they don't, they lose a bond, for example.
Yeah.
So you could have everything paid up front, and then they get for free the device as long as they provide enough data for it to be worth it for you. That's like what Rabbit is doing. Like they sell a cheap device. Their whole thing is having an LLM that feeds off of all the data. But it's the device is the data gathering.
I'm thinking for Zanzalu.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we want to do it for Zanzalu and for Edge City probably in late summer.
Do you already have
But
stock?
yeah.
Do you have stock of this device already? How many units do you have?
We can produce them quite quickly, but it's just a little bit a matter of having the liquidity.
Right, because we could raise funds for say 1,000 of these devices, give them to people who want to participate, and give you enough data so you can prove the thesis.
Yeah.
1,000 of those devices is like 250,000.
That's easy.
It's
I mean,
let's talk later.
they raised like $50 million for Julian Assange. Like you can raise $50 million for.
I'm aware of how that happens.
Those are not.
I'm aware of how that happens.
Yeah, but like that's why I think it's way more appealing to say.
The Assange thing was super successful because it was Assange.
Yeah, I know, but like this could be super successful because it's about your health.
But I can also give you a different use case. But yeah, I'm also a little bit an idealistic like you, so it's fine. I think we'll be a good match. I do have a different use case I could show you, but yeah.
Michael's
you.
question.
Huh?
Yeah. So I was thinking to get the money, you could sign the petition at fdai.org, and then I'm trying to get a million signatures so that I can get the damn government to spend $10 billion to build this like FDAI agent, so everybody has like a personal medical scientist. So then, but if they had $10 billion, then they could buy a whole bunch of this.
Was that like a soft shell?
That was a soft
That
shell.
was a pretty, yeah, that was pretty
Hey,
smooth.
this is a shilling zone. This is not a
It's-
shilling
Shell zone.
It's shilling for her because they're to get the money.
So then you
To
can
give
be
everybody
$69 million.
Yeah, can you,
That's the perfect shill. It's not my shill.
can you talk to it? So
He's good.
you can watch.
Can you talk to it?
Is it like a smartwatch?
So the thing is, we accustomed this watch to every use case. We had some really crazy use cases already, and so I think there is nothing that my team cannot do. We don't have that integration yet, but we have a microphone.
Yeah.
So technically, everything is possible actually.
Is it like a
So-
smartwatch? Like what OS is it running?
Huh?
Is it like a smartwatch too? Like what
Like
OS
what?
is it running?
What
Is
do
it
you-
like running Android?
Yeah, it runs on iOS and Android.
So like if everybody fully took advantage of all the optimal preventative measures and bacteria optimizations and stuff, then the U.S. would save $3 trillion a year in
Yeah, my
healthcare expenses.
Researchers love us.
So,
Yeah.
so there would be a return on investment for
Neutrino.
the government to invest in this, but so 300 million of these watches would cost about, I guess, like $90 billion.
Dude, we could put one on
It
every
still doesn't
senator and
cost
find out if they're
effective.
actually
$90 billion.
physically fit for office.
If you spend $90 billion and you save $3 trillion a year,
Very
and
good.
that is a good return on investment.
That's how you.
The math is mathing.
If you're a politician in the US, you have to wear one, and if
That's
you become
exactly what it
physically
is.
unfit for office, then
And the thing is,
just
the
the
main
day.
thing is,
But
insurance
we're not.
companies already know
We
this.
are a German company, right? I don't know if the US likes that, but our data protection is a little bit different in that sense.
But that's why it doesn't. It
If
cannot
it's
be
insured
something.
locally, then doesn't the
Yeah.
jurisdiction?
Like that's the thing. We actually don't trigger, or we don't fall into GDPR because in essence, you have to transmit. You have to consent when you
That's
transfer your
perfect.
data.
awesome.
What about
You have to test.
analyzing like the change from baseline in symptom severity after exposure to a particular intervention or drug? You analyze that on the device, and then you can send the results of the analysis
Yeah.
to be aggregated at a centralized location. Does that violate GDPR or HIPAA?
Yeah, it only violates GDPR if you don't have okay, there are like rules, but basically you can still be in conformity with GDPR. One of them is, for example, consent. So we have used a lot of these devices already in clinical trials with hospital partners and so on. So they used it on the patients, and everything was kind of cool because you had to consent essentially, and everything was also in the hospital ecosystem stored.
So you have to press like
but this is quite
do you
sensitive.
accept? Do you have to scroll down and accept?
Yeah, like basically in hospitals they're already set up with a server and the clinician like running the trial.
Mhm.
So that's a little bit of a different mission. But for example, the decentralized clinical trials that we did at Suzalu in Istanbul was really they had these CSV files and then they had to consent or like actively send it to us.
Right.
It's like voluntary cookies.
But they actually.
But you have to put some effort into them
Well,
and not just reject and accept.
So, okay, so the artifacts from the analysis of the raw data
Mhm.
are also covered by GDPR.
Yeah, all of it.
That sucks.
Why?
I don't know, because it'd be easier if you could just like determine the change from baseline for an intervention and a particular outcome, and then just
But you
send that to
can-
be aggregated with lots of people to increase.
But
the
if you
statistical
consent,
No,
if
no,
you
but you
consent
can.
for your data to be shared under GDPR, it's okay.
Yeah,
So as long as you consent, as long as you're not being tracked without your consent, like there's a lot more things that can be tracked, and like you just list the features of the device, and like the user is basically consenting away the right to claim that they didn't know.
Right.
So this would all be doable under that framework.
So we just have to get
Yeah, it's
the
basically
law has.
like the thing is that the insurance companies already figured this out because insurance would never give you free things.
But in the
Like that's
US,
not their business.
they don't care about reducing costs now with the Affordable Care Act because they receive subsidies and there's a use it or lose it clause. So
Yeah, but there's
if they
still
have
like
lower expenses
claims.
one year,
But
then
basically,
they
there,
get less money from the government the next year.
there's a number of if you get someone from if you keep them from having a relapse of like say congestive heart failure,
Uh-huh.
just from the usage of the clinic space because they own the clinics, so they have vertically integrated and they own like the insurance owns the clinic, owns the pharmacy, owns everything. So for them, if you get them to not spend on occupancy, is good because like it's already. And even if it's not applicable for the United States, like every other insurance company outside of the United States just has a number, less visits to the hospital, less claims, less money paid out, and then you just keep the monthly fees. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have no clue about the US. to be
At
honest.
mass scale, at like 300 million units, what do you think the economies of scale could drive down the cost of production to?
Like the more you, but
I
okay, I don't know if I'm like a little bit too realistic, but if the government would see our product as being kind of cool to use, I'm not really sure if they would invest that much money into it, but no clue. No clue.
I mean, the money could come from anywhere, really. Like, and that's the thing. If you have decentralized communities
Yeah,
that
that's
are
right.
raising for their constituents, which is like token holders, you can just tell people, okay, if you have a token, you get a free watch
Right.
because we're aggregating data. So
Yeah.
you play the insurance company game, capture people on your data set, and then just do the health thing yourself. You
Yeah.
call their provider.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the kind of powerful tool that we developed without actually knowing how powerful it could be. But that's it. Like, reach out to me. I don't know. We can talk about this. I can also set you up with my CTO.
Oh,
He knows
yeah.
all the tech background. But essentially, what I wanted to tell you is we do track instant raw data, right? So we do this quite precisely because we need it for medical use cases. So forget anything that Apple does. It's actually quite like really not useful in that context. So this is also something that researchers are really looking into, to, for example, train models, algorithms, and so on.
Cool.
Yeah. And I'm so not done.
So-
Nah. I waited 5 hours for this. Okay. So this is something that we have been exploring also since Istanbul. Actually, everything went downhill after that. And that is actually something that I'm quite involved in because I do have a legal background, and I basically teamed up with this team, our team, MCS. Teamed up with Lofi, it's like Logische Fantasy Labs, and we are trying to do a social and ecological justice project by the intersection of Web3, governance, and law. What does that mean? Yes.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay, man. I don't even know these slides. I just sent them. But
You have 5 hours.
So essentially what we want to do, okay, I need to flip them because I don't know how the order is. Okay, so we are producing something like these hard boxes. They will look like this. So we're gonna be at actually South by Southwest
Ooh.
this
What does it
year in
do?
Austin. I'll explain. So these are kind of hardware models that we also produced within like 2 weeks, which was kind of crazy. That's why I'm saying like technically everything is possible. That will capture breath from people that will basically blow in, right? And we have like certain kind of sensors here integrated that will capture, for example, like humidity, alcohol levels, and also actually the pollution data. And what we wanted to do is to get this data and then produce kind of dynamic NFTs out of them. What does that mean? I don't know if I have the slides here. Should. Okay. They were cooler slides. I don't know where they are. Okay, so a dynamic NFT should basically show you, so from, let's say, geolocation or any other data that we're trying to capture, will kind of look something similar like this, but it should change within your surroundings. So let's say if you're in a subway,
you will see visualized the impact of your surroundings on your health based on the data that you can also track. So eventually the next iteration will be also integrating our wearables to have like a bigger data set or larger data set. And yeah, and that's a little bit what we're trying to do. We want to visualize the impact of, let's say, ecological implications on your health. And we have been actually already collaborating with certain kind of vulnerable communities around Mexico, like Latin America. We're also thinking about doing that in Zanzibar, is to try to capture this, have it as an NFT, and then even as a form of legal evidence to actually show the like drastic change around the ecological impact on certain communities. So that's something that we're looking into, and this team is quite crazy, to be honest. So these are like hardcore lawyers.
You also do water samples, right?
We are doing also, okay, this is called Decentralized Right to Breathe. And we also have another branch that is going to be Decentralized Right to Water. But the Right to Water I'm not that affiliated with, so I have no clue how we're going to do that. But it's a little bit always the same intersection with culture, art, community engagement, and empowerment, and then also having legal evidence. So this is kind of let's do it. So this is a team with some really crazy scholars, to be honest. So that's Daniela Gandorfer. She's like a professor in law and also specialized in law at Web3 governance. So she's quite cool, and I think she's a better alternative than Primavera. So I'm not sure what I'm allowed to ask her. I say that. So he's our digital rights expert, for example. But we also have people like Patricia Williams, which is kind of cool. So like a very dedicated team of researchers, like doing those independent studies and trying to use tools as Web3 NFTs and all of that stuff to actually raise awareness around vulnerable communities.
Have you done any like incentive designs on top of the system?
So what we want to do is a little bit, like I said, like this is a quite actually new project in that sense. Like with our partnership, but eventually we wanted to do something like economics around it, so people can actually, contribute to these communities and like within a form of eventually not necessarily DAO system, but a form of like transparent public treasury. You could allocate tokens and have a form of a charitable event.
Because like if you want people to breathe in these things like over and over, like it would be best if for example, you need sampling from some data, and you actually can have people travel to a place to sample it because they're getting a higher incentive to it there than somewhere else. So
yeah, but we don't. But for example, blowing in itself is just something that we're doing for now the fair, because then you have like this more interactive and I think the more personal note to it.
Right.
But eventually you can also just set up stationary hardware.
Right,
You don't need
also,
necessarily
like people could
but,
take
like,
their own
for the
devices.
incentive.
Like that's people could take their own devices.
Yeah.
Like you have your own thing, and you have this game where it's like, oh, we need sampling in this park. So people go to the park and give a sample to prove that they were there, and you can have a proof, and it's like a way to get more accurate real-time data.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and
Like
also
your location
someone
also.
here is doing Project Meso Reef DAO, which they really care about these corals, right? And this type of samples, like I really like the way you abstract sort of the data in the device into this art thing that could even be aggregated, for example, to show the heat map, right? So if you put all the NFTs together and you know where they are, you can sort of have a map of Mexico and how dirty or not dirty it is.
Sure. Yeah, like you can really take and scale this to other.
Yeah, but it's a cool abstraction because you can kind of get it, where it's like, oh, this place is polluted, and you're having real information.
So the fun part about it is also, I think, why culture and art are quite essential as a mean to show like this impact is like that stuff are not good for you, but you never like you see it in numbers, but nobody cares in nobody cares about the numbers. Did I break it?
I'm not caring too. In a stationary sense, there would be an amazing use case there for the effects of like mining and logging on forested areas, which is something that is so unbelievably covered up. And air quality would be one of the number one ways to prove environmental detrimental effects of these large scale.
You could also use that to find like illegal logging because
and hunting too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because of methane and shit.
Yep, because of off gassing.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And fires, the start of fires.
Yeah.
All these drunk people that go start a fire and then burn down half the forest.
Right. And you could actually avoid a lot of damage because you could find the fire because like air quality changes way before you can perceive it, right?
Way before.
So it's like you would be able to catch early fires better because people near the edge of the forest get some readings.
Yeah.
So it's like live loading. It's like precision medicine, but for like forest.
And one of the biggest problems there is you don't have the response time. It comes down to like if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it? Did it even happen?
Right.
And so all of this stuff ends up being unprovable because you get a logging company and they by the time anybody gets in to evaluate it, they've co-opted the data, they've co-opted the entire process, and they get exactly what they want out of it every single time. And so all of that data is just totally skewed. And they clear cut forests with impunity.
Yeah, like water sampling too. Like you have a factory that turns out its thing, then samples the water, and so the results are good.
Colorado River going into Mexico in Arizona, one of the areas I used to clean up. The farmers will swear they do nothing, but you drink that water and it will kill you in a couple of weeks. But
So,
it's
but
healthy.
this is a cool part, I think, where NFTs could be quite valuable, right? Because you will catch like instant evidence of anything, and no one can manipulate it anymore. So it's tamper-proof in that
It
sense,
has
too.
to be real-time collection too, because they know how to manipulate it.
Exactly.
And if I dump chemicals in the river, it'll self-heal mostly within hours.
Exactly, but that's why we do real-time data capturing.
Yeah.
I got you covered.
Love
Okay, to the last one. And I think this is where everyone will be a little bit more happy.
Oh, we're pretty happy with that.
I'm
Thanks,
super happy with that.
Pandora.
Like, we need that out the woods like yesterday.
So this was a presentation meant for people that don't know Web3 and don't understand anything. So I feel like I'm gonna skip some parts. But now I'm gonna go into the nitty and gritty of Lemonade. I think you guys heard of this a little bit. So Lemonade is actually a decentralized framework for communities and
It looks like a hacker tool, I know.
Come on.
That
where
font
is
is
it? Yeah.
We're stealing our colors.
Fuck.
Bonus points for the font.
Decide green.
It's good. You can take credit.
Lemonade, decentralized cooperation for framework for communities and countries. What does that mean? I'll explain later. But basically, it's a let's start with this. I will start with the idea behind Lemonade, and then people actually understand what we mean by this. But yeah, so I did this more professionally in that context. So I had an outline. So this is what we were talking about. So the idea behind it, the characteristics of blockchain, because these were like non-Web3 people, what Lemonade is. Then we kind of stepped into network states, why Lemonade for that could be quite interesting, and then kind of Web3 prototyping in Zanzibar. Yep. So basically how Lemonade came to being was, so the co-founders actually started in Barcelona, where they had the same issues that any organization basically runs in, right? Like you have high transaction costs, you have these coordination failures, like people don't really adhere to contractual agreements and so on. And that was very much amplified in the music scene, where actually artists were just exploited. So they kind of wanted to build a framework for these communities to be a little bit more self-sovereign, where they don't depend on, let's say, like centralized services like Instagram and so on, or a form of management partner. And they basically leveraged Web3 technology for this peer-to-peer coordination. And then it went a little bit more wild, but okay, I had to explain what blockchain is. So if you guys don't know. So we went to smart contracts, and then literally, like, as we know, I explained it with Uber, and everyone was like, whoa, really, we can't get rid of Uber? And I was like, yeah, technically, maybe. So yeah, decentralized organizations, this is a little bit what kind of comes to happen, right? Like when we think about what smart contracts and blockchain inherently can do, is actually completely alter the way that we coordinate social and economic behavior. And this is something that I try to emphasize by having the analogy also of Uber, that we can literally have like a new intermediary where a community can take
action and the lead of the way of how they govern themselves or even manage their own financial or like their own treasury. So this is where Lemonade kind of kicked in. So what they do is we have this framework, right? And we divide it into 4 pillars of identity, information, money, and power. So it's a little bit a framework for decentralized organizations, so to speak. And we wanted to cover everything that we think or we thought of as being quite vital for communities to organize themselves. So we ran into the issue of, okay, what is identity? One of that was then the question of, okay, well, how do we define identity? So we have any citizen, so this can be me and or you. We can, through our wallet addresses, actually get a passport. And these passports are multi-chain, permissionless, all of that fun stuff. And you can kind of customize it to your own photo, your name. And you also have kind of a decentralized timeline, which is cool. So other community members understand who you are, what you like, what you've been posting, and so on. So they're supported by many chains, these passports. Yeah. And they're quite inclusive because you can purchase them, but you can also earn them for people that cannot afford. Because right now, for example, one is around 0.05 ETH. Like depending on which community you want to, they can differ in pricing. That's why like you have these free possibilities of either purchasing, earning, or crowdfunding your passport. Then we run into the question of information. So how do we want to engage into the community with like news sharing and messaging? And that we basically put all of the Web3 infrastructure
You
in
used
there.
all the stack, I can tell.
Huh?
It's everything. So.
Yeah, it's kind of everything is in there. So yeah, everything is end-to-end encrypted, of course. You can host and also manage your own events, which is kind of cool. And we also have a knowledge base, which kind of is nice for Josh, right? Yes.
Yes. The whole thing is good for us, but this especially.
But yeah, so basically the knowledge base is a lot about trying to counter misinformation spread around communities, so you can actually get rewarded if you flag misinformation. So this is also an integration that we have. Then we have the question of money. So you have a permissionless commerce, of course,
Wait.
supported.
Sorry. How do you?
Sorry, yes.
How do you flag misinformation?
I'm too comfortable. Yeah.
I started professional and outline yo.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we like here.
How do you? So you flag misinformation, and how do you attest against it? Like, what's the process?
Go on.
It's literally just like a good or like a yes or no, thumbs up
Yes.
or thumbs down. You don't
So-
have to
so-
attest to any of it. Because
What?
if you think, okay, if you get some information,
To Reddit?
no.
It's like
Just get YouTube.
If you listen,
YouTube up, down,
If you
down.
ask a question and listen, right?
Mhm.
If you say up, then it's good. If you say back,
Down,
down,
it's
then it's
down.
bad. And that is in itself a verification mechanism which across the whole community can filter the information or rank the information for relevance or verification.
yeah, and you can
So
also
we're like,
basically
okay,
provide
broski.
evidence.
Okay, wait. So I decide to throw up something about the KKK.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we have a bunch of KKK cronies that are like, yeah. We have a bunch of ones that are like, no.
Yeah.
But that doesn't
That's
display
it.
false. That doesn't disprove misinformation. It just tells you what the sentiment around that piece of
It's a
information
sentiment
is.
analysis.
Exactly.
But that's not.
Yeah, people
Combating
upload
misinformation.
information they like.
Well,
not
neither is
information
what
that
kind of
is
what
true.
we're doing is a consensus mechanism, right?
Yeah, but you can prove it.
So you can prove the knowledge was put on chain by a certain person. You can't prove the knowledge itself.
My point is, you can combat that knowledge. So, for
You can on
example,
this also.
well, that's my
Yeah,
question.
For example, popularity contest.
Up and down does not do that.
No. You can flag it and combat the misinformation spread, and it's a little bit of form of evidence, right? Like if you say, "Oh, I'm claiming this," and the other one is like, "No, this is wrong." So you actually have an open combat in that sense in that community.
So it's like,
How do you win?
for example,
And this.
for example, if I have this KKK community,
Mhm.
it's not siloed from the rest of the overall Lemonade people who can actually all just go and download like what they. I mean,
It's a separate knowledge base, but anybody can access the knowledge base if it's a public knowledge base. You can have
Right.
public or private knowledge bases.
okay. And this is more of a wiki style indexed sort of like data repository, right? Like people are. How do you perceive like people interfacing with this data? Like just browsing filters, like normal stuff?
I have actually, I'm really not that equipped with the information layer. I'm more like the governance interest. I think Josh will partner up with us in that regard. So
Josh?
Okay, so I have to solve that.
Or do you
Yeah,
On the spot.
Yes, Carlos and Jelani are also do so well.
Oh.
So Carlos.
Yeah,
So-
whatever,
So
but I-
basically, you're telling me it's my issue to solve.
Yeah.
Every time you say Josh, actually it's me.
I don't know.
Decide hacker mom, we need you to rescue us.
but that's like a little
No,
bit the
he's a
question.
hacker
So
mode.
we're
Yes.
going
He's
to
brother.
face the
Oh,
same.
he's been
I mean,
issues
I'm
that
asking
everyone
because
else.
we can solve it. I mean, that's
Yeah, yeah.
Run around saying.
But that's exactly like what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring in like the whole collaboration layer from different communities to understand or to build this infrastructure.
I'm really impressed by how
Solidified.
broadly you've applied this stack.
Yeah, this is like all in one thing.
Carlos,
They
you have
have
to
been
see
crazy,
the thing.
but we have been building
You have
this
to
for
see
like 6 years. Like 6 years, guys.
Wow.
6 years of work, just saying. Okay, so we did like commerce, we did that, right? Like you can sell, buy, you can mint NFTs and all of that fun stuff. You can co-manage assets, multi-sig assets, all of that is also supported.
So if you're not using that, you're not in
And-
what you're
Beyond the
I'll
KKK
roll it to one.
issue, how would you deal with a verifiable situation like, say, a protest where there's actually monetary incentive for a government to spread misinformation?
Mhm.
How
They
would
would
you
have
deal
to-
with that?
They would have to pay on chain.
They do.
Yeah, but like before, you didn't know people were paid. But in this system, like you will always like if you want to fund someone on chain, everyone else knows they were funded on chain. Especially in this system.
Exactly.
But I mean, you're dealing with an entity with infinite power and labor, and like they literally co-opted all of Facebook.
Well,
to
as
exist.
much as they can like as much power and labor as they can like hire, right? And the things that if people are being paid on decentralized networks, you get an effect where for every dollar the network the government can spend, the network can spend $10, and it's open and verifiable, so people can always verify who's the trusted node.
I mean,
But like, so in the case of like Facebook, that's completely verifiable, but nobody cares.
No, Facebook is not
That's what I was
verifiable.
about to say.
Nobody cares.
Not
Like the
everybody's gonna be
misinformation
Zach
is still
XBT.
promoted over the
Right,
Right.
but you need one sex XBT to show the network that someone's sus, and then the network will just vote him down.
But they don't. Like in the case again of like Facebook, like we dealt with this with Occupy. Like
But the
even
problem-
though it's
problem-
verifiable,
Facebook is not
the
verifiable.
general public doesn't care, so the sentiment gets perverted.
The thing is, Facebook is not verifiable if the person who posted is a person, if the post was edited, if the post could have been deleted. Like now, if you demand on-chain proof for everything, then nothing can be co-opted in that way.
But so like in Facebook, there are people who like literally track these government shells down and prove it. And again, like the government just goes and like defames them.
Yeah,
and
but-
nobody cares. So
but
the
because-
sentiment
because there's not
that's
a
the
bounty
problem
for it.
with sentiment
There's no bounty for it.
analysis.
If it's like a thingless job, of course it's gonna fade. But if every time a sex XBT post goes viral, proving like a chain of like grift, the network just kills it. And the thing is that the network effect on like on-chain assets is brutal. Like every time you get proven like your art was like fake, the thing goes to zero. Like not like something zero.
Look at Lime.
On an individual level, yes, but when you're talking on a government entity level, infinite power, infinite labor on a generational scale.
I'm just
And they are willing to
what I'm-
continue things over the course
I'm
of like
saying is
10,
that
20, 30
what I'm
years.
saying is that the most coordinated network wins. Like when they killed Occupy,
But that's the government.
right
Is
now,
every
but,
time.
But that's the whole point. Like when they killed Occupy, they could coordinate all the majors, all the master nodes to shut down the thing at the same time.
Yes.
But but you didn't have a decentralized network to back you, and that they were more coordinated and they stifled it out. But if you have like a DAO who will just not back down, and every time and it's headless, so every time someone like the Assange thing,
If you had enough DAOs,
yeah,
I think it's possible, but that really like requires. It's almost like a benevolent dictatorship because
So
you
I think
need people that are willing to go head to head with the government at that point, and it gets to the point where like, dude, they do some evil stuff to
Right,
get rid of
So
people.
I think that just so we can proceed, I think the point is just that this is the next step to getting to where you're looking at, right? So this might not solve at all levels of the spectrum,
But it is a better step.
It's a
Yeah,
better
it's a
step.
better step than like relying on a third party news organization.
right.
because you can just fund yourself, like say, hey, I'm here in this thing because this and that, and then you get no middleman, and then people just throw money at you. So
100%.
you're always gonna have more
But
resources.
then to go back to
Taylor will
Jelani
come
though,
I disagree with
to
you.
go back to
on that.
Jelani though, this is the problem with sentiment analysis versus actual analyzation of like what is truth and what is not. Because in some cases, like there is truth
Sentiment
that
is
does get intentionally manipulated.
Yeah, but like for example, with semantic databases, now you can extract meaning from like whatever people are saying, and then just get the truth of that. And it goes through all that layer of bullshit, and you just get the meaning. You can have someone speaking for hours, and you have an AI that says he actually didn't say anything because he was speaking in circles and like loops of logic. And then 3 words can have more meaning and they will always get found in the database because they're true.
Yeah, AI is definitely the next layer there.
They also have an AI integration, by the
Of
way.
course, because it has all the tech.
Yeah.
At the same time, hit him from every angle.
Okay, wait, and then we have something power. Okay, this is for me a little bit more interesting. So we're trying to understand how we actually do governance, right? But essentially, what we were thinking of first, you have a crew, so you have like a membership of let's say 5 people, and this could expand. Like the more people, the more traction you get, you can actually eventually become something like a state or the union. So this is a little bit my definition of a network state, not network state. I kind of don't like this, but you get the point.
Yeah,
you get.
We get the point.
So to co-opt the state, you become the state.
You become like the DAO becomes the state. Yeah. That's like the fun part. So we also basically try to have a stack for vertical and horizontal power in that sense. So we have our legislature, executive, judiciary, and reserve. And all of this will be controlled, of course, by the community members. So every passport holder will fall into the legislative and can vote on proposals and also write proposals and so on. The executive will be a little bit more qualified in the sense that there will be the builders actually executing these proposals. Judiciary are the people, the citizens that will then scrutinize if the executive actually worked well or like executed the proposal in the legal manner.
Powered by tally.
And then
To be clear, we would be an executive.
Okay.
And then we have a treasury, or we call it the National Reserve, where all of the tokens will be allocated, and the community can basically vote upon how they want to spend their treasury. So yeah, okay, this is a little bit more in depth, but exactly. So the legislature then also has kind of a Senate and a House of Representatives. The House of Representatives will actually represent all of the community members who have passports. And the Senate is a little bit more the community members that are actually more active. So the ones that have the most referrals, the ones that actually have campaigns, created events, and just kind of gave back to the community. The executive, like I said, are actually the people that know how to build stuff. So that's not me. And then you have judiciary that will, keep like the checks and balances in that sense. I hope so. I don't know. I'm gonna apply for that. And you got the reserve, of course. Like I said, basically, the community will always have a say how to spend the treasury. So with all of that, I don't know if I have this. Sorry, here. I thought it was actually, or we thought interesting in the era of where everyone talked about network states. Are we eventually also building a framework for network states, right? So we all know Balaji's definition, which is not my favorite, but sure.
Yes.
And then, a little bit more the legal definition. That's more my favorite. So, traditionally we define network states with having a population, territory, centralized government, also actually a permanent population, but never mind. Sovereignty and an international law recognition as a component is actually disputed, so that doesn't really matter. But then the question of network state, because I really don't have a better terminology, and I think coordination states also fail on that. So maybe we can think or brainstorm a new term. I would really like that. But as we know, it's highly aligned communities, right, that are kind of geographically decentralized, meaning that we're kind of more connected through the minds and the cloud and not necessarily a physical boundary or territory. So our governance will also be decentralized, as for example the framework that we have developed. So question was more crazy, could Lemonade be now a framework for not just only communities but basically expand to something bigger?
Could
Can you call them decentralized states instead of network states?
Yeah, I like that. I
They call
just
it a
couldn't.
coordination.
D-state?
D-states. The D-state.
But I
You're part of
also-
the D-state now.
But I also
D-town,
wanted to
D-town.
move away from
D-town,
notions of
D-town,
states.
D-crew.
I don't know why.
D-state.
Move away from what?
D-union.
Just put a D on it.
Statehood.
Why?
I refuse.
Because I
They
feel
call it
it's interesting if
coordination.
we use terminology that
I
is
thought of
not
that same thing actually.
that.
Coordination.
That's
That's
so
good.
Adversarial?
Yo,
Yeah.
Consensus state.
We just won.
What-
Just said coordination.
Coordination.
Oh.
But that's Primavera. She
No,
does
that's
coord-
Josh. I didn't say that.
No, Primavera said, not you, bro.
What are you trying to call
This
it?
is IP infringement, by the way.
The true decentralized way is everyone calls it whatever they want.
So-
It's pretty good.
Question was, right? Technology has allowed us to start new companies, whatever, communities, currency, but can we actually create new cities and even countries?
Yes,
That was-
yes, we can.
Okay, cool.
Yes,
Fuck it, I'm out.
No, we need you. We need you.
All right, you're gonna be the first elect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You can
what happens now is why are you doing it? Zanzibar. So Zanzibar essentially is, so we're collaborating with Zanzalu. I don't know if you guys heard of them.
We are collaborating with you at Zanzalu.
Oh,
Did you know that?
I'm in that Telegram group. Oh yeah, I saw you.
Great.
We love that coordination.
I was like, yeah, you're in. Cool. But basically what we want to do is trying to prototype or have a little bit an on-ground experiment around, hey, don't give up on me. Okay,
That's a
around
deep step.
can we test our infrastructure that we have built on the ground, right? So we need actual local community engagement and not just build in isolation in our little bubble where every theory kind of stands, but actually have a real life ground impact. So that's why we started branching out to like different projects and stumbled upon I guess Zanzibar. Because there you have also a special economic zone, of course, and our focus will be trying to build digital public goods, but with local engagement. As an essence, I think this is going to be always a default to have actually local community at its core, everything that like on every level that we're building. We do have a lot of partnerships already, but that's not yet. So the theory of change was more, okay, what happens if we bring Web3 people or like all of this kind of knowledge and intellect within local communities with their real life challenges? And what happens if we kind of build stuff together? So that was a little bit the ethos, like let's build digital public goods for the greatest number of people with the highest impact, but from ground up. So basically the partners that we had are Charter Cities Institute.
Mark.
Yes. Cool. So they're basically highly equipped when it comes to new governance models. So they're quite affiliated also with the government to work in Zanzibar. So they're very much in close collaboration with the local government. Then we have partnerships that are quite cool around trying to understand if we,
Oh, Earthship.
Yeah.
Nice.
if we
Those aren't Earthships.
That's so cool.
No, we
Earthships are
do
with
have-
tigers.
All the building people,
Same
the people
tech,
who are
though.
building
Sorry, I'm
new
not trying to-
housing are
It's all
so
I'm
cool.
just being
Like,
semantic.
No, but we basically have partners that have a lot of knowledge and expertise around building permaculture and trying to have really sustainable housing that is carbon neutral. So these guys are also going to follow us at some point in Zanzibar. I'm not sure if they're coming to Zanzibar, to be honest, but eventually, like the plan was more, can we create a city that is fully sustainable with the local resources we have, but with the knowledge of these guys that have been doing this over like decades and decades. Then we have also partnerships with universities that will ship in, let's say the intellect from the software engineering part, and we're trying to really educate the communities locally, but also have a form of residency for people to stay longer term. So not something that is only like 5 weeks or 6, but maybe even like longer in the sense of sustainable, sustainable development. So staying for like a year or longer. So that's our very much future goal. Zanzalo only lasts for 5 weeks. So. Okay, and then we have all these cool partnerships also around culture and art. Vinyl Nation, I will go into
more depth later. But this is also a kind of network state that we developed on that we're partnering up with Lemonade and Mixmac Labs. I don't know, maybe people from the music. Hey, you guys know them. Okay, cool. So these are also our supporters. And then we have different kind of network states protocols. So we have Her Nation that are really focused on like a community that will amplify the voices of women. So the female voices around AI, governance, commerce, and all of that. Vinyl Nation is a little bit more focused on music and festival integration, but they all are collaborating with Lemonade, right? So they have kind of the same infrastructure as us, but of course different founders and just like a different community with a different vision and mission. So now, I don't know, like I don't think
Is
this
this
is
a world on that?
Huh?
Is this a world on that?
Design world.
It
You
should
guys didn't
be.
join yet. Why? But now the question was, can I close it? Cool. Yeah, nice. So the question for me was a little bit because I've been exploring the design world, right? And I was like, cool, we basically built an infrastructure for any community out there, and let's onboard others. So that's why I kind of came to you guys, because I feel like every organization will run into the same issues, and it doesn't really matter if you're like a festival or I don't know, like Her Nation, but it could be an actual quite feasible tool to start, I guess, decentralized organizations in that sense.
Yeah. Is
So-
it live?
Yeah, you can purchase your passport since today.
I'll give you guys all the
yesterday.
protocols.
No. Wait.
All the protocols.
Wait.
They're fighting over circles.
Actually, if you stay in this house, Carlos stay in this house.
No.
Oh, use
Let's
my
not even
phone.
go Carlos.
But the thing is, you need
Fucking so abstract and
you
everything away
need
from me. I'm the
you
founder of
you
this
still
place, man.
but you still need to.
Fucking nuts.
What's the weapon?
You put yourself co-founder.
He's
for
in
the
for
whole
Senate.
You guys,
Yeah,
you don't even
100%.
have a web address yet. What do you want? You
Guys,
only have
I'm
my
talking over the nice lady who's presenting.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, disrespectful. This is how you
Disrespect.
guests. No.
Yo.
So I can give you, of course, the invite codes from now on. Vinyl Nation. Vinyl Nation is live.
No
You
one's
have-
gonna say no because no one gonna use what.
If anyone doesn't use my referral code, I know where you fucking sleep.
Whoa.
But the fun part
That's
is,
dictatorship.
but the fun part is,
Watch
of
it.
course, through Lemonade and us, because I'm actually more affiliated with the founders. But you can, of course, trust me. No, but we're like kind of the core members. Yeah, we want to start onboarding more people, trying like helping us, of course, because the first revenue, because we really want to stay community driven and open source, is by launching these passports, which will now, when you would purchase one from like Vinyl Nation only as a first network state that we launched, would be around like $200, like 0.05 ETH.
So if we create like
It's
a
cheaper than
community,
my
could
US
we
passport.
issue the passports? Like, could people buy like nerd passports?
Yeah, like anyone could. That's the thing. Like you can literally
yeah.
like iterate it to your community's needs. And all of that stack, you can also do whatever you want with it. It's just a template, so to speak. Yeah.
So
The spaces.
um,
Oh, Lose Nation.
yeah,
There you go.
going back to so I have two questions. First one
Okay.
is going back to the power in the governance.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the data that we have,
Mm-hmm.
could your vote power increase based on your experience if you're voting on a certain field? Let's say
Yeah, you can actually become, so to speak, an expert and also apply for certain positions. So if you're more qualified in certain positions, you can hold that as a form of job title. But the cool thing is that everything
But
will
will your
always
vote
be on
power
chain.
increase based on it.
My voting power will
Yes.
increase if I'm a member of like
So
a
if you're a
judge or what.
doctor,
Yeah.
you're like voting in medicine.
So, for
would be
example,
more-
Yeah, like for example, people with more expertise, they have just like different functions in that sense. So you will be probably part of the executive, right? So you don't really have more voting power, but you can also delegate your vote. So you can delegate it to people that are more knowledgeable in certain kind of aspects or like certain kind of fields.
Okay, so
but it's
based
just
on your
voluntarily.
merits, you're like segmented into a certain group of voting power. And if you're more professional, you have more voting
Yeah,
power,
but
or
like
more
you need to have
experience.
on-chain trust, you need to have the reputation and all of that. So technically now everyone,
like having the same password will have the same voting power, but then of course through delegation and so on, this could change.
Okay. And then my other one is based on the sensors. And
Oh, this one?
yes,
Okay.
based on the sensors and like cameras. Thinking about sports for validating the actions that are being played in the sports, like referees could use these tools to like make sure a match happened without being there and just like looking at the data.
But that's video, like video
Yeah, but
recording.
then
and
you
sensing,
have like
right?
some, I don't
Heart
know,
rate, sports tracking,
Yeah.
such things.
for example, for like cheating in sports,
Mm.
you cannot trying hard enough to like show the data, like out of nowhere you decided to like lower your heart rate. I don't know.
Like to make sure that you're participating in the sport because it tracks you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then through you running and your steps and your motions, or what do you mean exactly?
Yeah. So like.
Because like you have an elevated heartbeat, and then like this could be tracked, yeah, and it could be tracked even in seconds.
Yeah,
And
and
then you're in
then
the location of the venue.
And then you're on GPS, yeah.
and then and for the cheating part, like
For the
Good.
cheating?
cheating, yeah, if you want to like cheat within a match,
Mm-hmm.
it will be visible, like your.
Yeah, like I mean, if it goes down, yeah, you will see differentiation, like according to your normal data that you would submit. Yeah.
Can you guys make like a mirror of all of the existing countries in the world called like you make an awesome America and awesome Brazil and awesome Mexico and then get populated and then have it solve all the problems that the regular government doesn't solve. And
So
then
Taiwan did that.
they did.
Yeah, they forked their government with MetaGov,
Yeah,
Gov Zero, and then had DAO Zero.
Yeah. So you could start with America though, because like the SEC is really horrible at keeping people from getting ripped off, but because they're all they're, like fucking around with classifying things as securities all the time instead. So you could have like Zach XPT or whatever be the chairman of the decentralized state Awesome America SEC, and then him or like some super intelligent AI SEC chair could keep people from getting ripped off, and then you have damn like AI FDA with your watches, and then you have it like
This is how you closing the
monitoring
circuit.
people's diet and intake and symptom severity, and then providing personalized guidance on the safety and efficacy of all foods and drugs in the world. And then eventually,
Well, you thought this more out than I did, right? Okay.
then, you coordinate
Can we stop this?
fundraising. You create like a PAC, political action committee or something, and then you could like worm your way into the regular government, getting representatives